Hi, this is Alex Yoder with Pro Tip Tuesday and Dorman Real Estate Management. This is my favorite day of the week, and today we're going to talk about the guidelines released by HUD on assistive animals. If you don't know what an assistive animal it is either a service animal or an emotional support animal. So that kind of is the umbrella term for animals that are helping somebody with a physical or mental disability. Now, I want to say first of all that landlords don't want to decline legitimate service or emotional support animals. If you have a legitimate medical need for that animal, we don't want to say no to you. That's not the problem. The problem is that there's a lot of abuse mainly around the emotional support term and world, and a lot of folks who are pretending to have emotional support animals and a need for an emotional support animal when they don't in fact actually have a need. They just don't want to pay fees, or they want to get an animal accepted in a home that is traditionally or typically a no pet property. So it's being abused, and there are some rules on the state level that I'm not going to go into today that make it illegal for you to misrepresent an animal as a service animal or an emotional support animal. But again, we're not going into that right now. I want to talk about specifically these guidelines. Again, go read the link. I'm going to provide it in the post for this video on Facebook. I really want to answer one big question that I get all the time. And it's pertaining to these certificates that folks get. And you have a tenant that's applying for your property, and they provide you with the certificate that they paid $50 to $100 for online that says they need this animal for their medical need. And a lot of folks don't know what to do with that. And fortunately, these guidelines provide quite a bit of clarity and a substantial amount of clarity on that specifically. So I'm going to read this paragraph for you, which is on page 11, top of page 11. Some websites sell certificates, regulations, and licensing documents for assistive animals to anyone who answers certain questions or participates in a short interview and pays a fee. Under the Fair Housing Act, a housing provider may request reliable documentation when an individual requesting a reasonable accommodation has a disability or disability-related need for accommodations that are not obvious or otherwise known. In HUD's experience, such documentation from the internet is not by itself sufficient to reliably establish that an individual has a non-observable disability or disability-related need for an assistive animal. By contrast, many legitimate licensed healthcare professionals deliver services remotely, including over the internet. So what it's saying here is that you don't have to accept just those certificates. You can require documentation from a healthcare provider that they in fact need that animal for their medical need. That's very helpful. It gives a lot of clarity. It does say that, again, by contrast, some of these healthcare providers are providing those documents electronically or through the internet. So that's not to say that anything through the internet you can just say no to, but just these little certificates that they're paying for don't cut it. And thank God HUD has provided that clarity. It also goes into all kinds of details on the types of animals that you have to say yes to, or the types of animals that you can say no to, and sort of what those exceptions are, which is on page 12. Very interesting stuff, so I would encourage you to go look that over as well. But I was really just hoping to answer that one big question that I get about these bogus certificates, which is where most of that fraud is occurring. So yeah, go read these guidelines. Very helpful in my opinion. Although it doesn't answer every question, it certainly answers quite a few of them. So that is all for today. Alex Yoder, Dorman Real Estate Management, Pro Tip Tuesday. We will see you next week. Goodbye.